Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is Suicide Prevention Day, and although this is a very, very sensitive topic, I am feeling very moved, very called to share my story, to share things with you guys that truthfully people in my real life don't even know about me or might not necessarily know about my family. And yes, it's very vulnerable, but again, I want to share this story and I hope that it helps to bring a sense of comfort and peace to people who are suffering right now. My uncle committed suicide when I was in high school. I was 14 years old, I believe. I think it was about 15 years ago. And I didn't know that he committed suicide. I was told by my family that he died in a car accident. And at that age, why wouldn't I believe that, right? It's like, okay, unfortunately, people die in car accidents. It's something that happens to people. And it seemed like it was a pretty believable story. So I didn't question it. I just know that my mom went through a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and I think that that's when her obsessive compulsive disorder really took its shape, and she used religion as a way to cope with the grief and the sorrow and the surprise that she was feeling. And I can't even imagine what she went through, and I was so young that I wasn't really understanding what she was going through. All I knew was that I had been suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder for years. I had emetophobia as a child, I had scrupulosity as a child, I had harm OCD as a child, and I didn't know any of these things. So that's another reason why it's really hard to talk about all of this, is because I was also kind of living in the dark about it for so long, and it took years of reading self-help books, listening to mantras, listening to different types of, music that was like music therapy that really helped me. But it wasn't until I started conducting my own research about the symptoms that I was experiencing, the thoughts I was having, that I even found out I had OCD. Now, for psychologists, for people who are fully aware of what OCD is, there were many signs as a kid that I showed very early on. But again, both of my parents, they're immigrants from Italy. They were doing the best that they could as parents, and they had no idea why their daughter was having such severe panic attacks. They didn't know why I was doing the things that I was doing. I mean, even like nail biting and other things that I didn't even realize, those are actually some signs of obsessive compulsive disorder. I scratch my head a lot. I would touch my face. There are certain things that I do as compulsions to help cope with the anxiety. And again, no one knew what I was going through. I also kept a lot of my thoughts to myself because these intrusive thoughts were like flashes. They were images that I didn't really have control over that would come before me, and I would see these horrible, horrible things either happening to me or to people that I loved, and in a desperate attempt of just trying to block it out of my mind, I did everything that I could to shield those thoughts and to block them from even my memory. So it wasn't until I started with my podcast that I really tapped further into all of these things. But back to me as a high school student, again, I was going through all of these things myself. I was watching my mom going through a lot of depression and anxiety, and just the ways that she coped turned out to be ways that I started coping with my anxiety. And in 2015, I learned something about myself that was shocking to me and shocking to my family. I consider myself to be pansexual. I love humans. I think people are beautiful and wonderful, and gender to me doesn't mean anything. And I always had thoughts about both men and women, but never even dreamed of pursuing any of it because I grew up in a very religious household, and it was a sin, it was considered bad, impure, etc. So there was a lot of shame and guilt that I lived with, which is all about scrupulosity, which is the religion obsessive compulsive disorder. So it's a subset of OCD. And the long story short is that I was dating a woman and told my parents about my experience and was told to pray the gay away, was told to do all of these different things that in my heart I knew was not needed. I didn't feel like I needed to feel badly about anything. And at the time, I just wanted to kind of like reintroduce myself to my own parents. And it just felt right in that moment. So it was a very like short relationship. The suicidal thoughts started happening after things ended. And not because it ended, but because of the guilt and the shame that I was experiencing was so much. It hurt so badly to go through what I was going through that I remember having like 2 or 3 really, really big fights with my mom. And I literally told her that if these kinds of conversations continue, she's going to lose a daughter. And I think that she understood I didn't mean just, I'm going to stop talking to you. Obviously, at this point in time, she knew that her younger brother had taken his life, and I still did not know. So my depression, my anxiety was through the roof, and every single day was just awful. I woke up hating myself, feeling guilty. My compulsions were to try and pray the right way, pray enough, pray the gay way. Like I tried everything that religion would sort of call for, you know, people like me to do, and like nothing was working, and I just felt hopeless. I felt pathetic. I felt dirty. I mean, there are just so many things that were going through my mind. And again, I'm sorry if these are triggering to some people, but I'm really trying to be as open and honest as possible, especially on a day like today. And when it really hit me was, I remember I was living in Stamford at the time, Stamford, Connecticut, and I was commuting into the city for a job. And I remember feeling so much shame and guilt and confusion around what I was going through that my thoughts were keeping me up. And one specific day, I recall waking up, sitting upright in my bed, and I had to literally grip my sheets with both hands to try and stop myself from doing something, because my intrusive thoughts were like, what would happen if you jumped in front of a train? What if you just got in your car right now and drove off of a cliff? The pain would stop. The noise in your mind would be silenced. It was always, I had chatter in my head. It was like my own thoughts battling with themselves. So it was just question after question, and I was ruminating, trying to seek reassurance, and at the time I didn't know any of this, but I remember just seeking assurance. I Googled everything. I found, a lot of information, but a lot of it was sinning, and everything was just adding to the anxiety that I was experiencing and making it worse. And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't want to live anymore. I can't do this anymore. At this point, it had been, I want to say maybe like 5 or 6 months after that relationship with that woman ended. And there was so much confusion even about like, well, did I even like her? Was that just the enemy, the devil, trying to get into my head? Was this all something that, made me go through it to just have this be the end, and I just remember very vividly having these suicidal thoughts, and I had experienced some of it before. I didn't try to do anything, but the harm OCD gave me intrusive thoughts that made me afraid to be around knives, because every time I would look at them, I would think, am I going to hurt myself with them? Am I going to hurt someone else with them? And this fear, this uncertainty of like, well, what would I do if? That's the thing with obsessive compulsive disorder, is that instead of thinking a thought, feeling a type of way about it, and letting it pass, sufferers will think about it, and it will be this broken record in your brain, just replaying the same thought over and over and over again. And it's constantly questioning your sanity, questioning how good of a person you are, if you're doing the right thing. It's always, everything always needs to be categorized between right and wrong. And, you know, did you pray hard enough? Did you pray enough? Did you ask God for forgiveness? Did you, recite the mantra, like, I used to say, like, I rebuke that in Jesus' name. I cover myself with the blood of Jesus. It was always this, like, repetition in my brain. And so with these, like, graphic images that would just, like, come into my mind, I would just see myself hurting myself, or jumping in front of a train, or, when you're in traffic, kind of like seeing a visual of running into traffic and, colliding into something. And it's disturbing. They're intrusive thoughts. They're unwanted. And the brain, it's almost like I wasn't recognizing what was reality, what wasn't. Is this a premonition? Is this something that means something more? I mean, it's really, really challenging to best describe what that feeling is to someone who hasn't experienced it. All I can share for those that have not suffered from obsessive compulsive disorder is that it's very challenging to live with these intrusive thoughts. And I was, as a coping mechanism, I was also trying to keep myself busy with school, with work, with grades. I was on this channel a lot, helping to share tips on studying, taking notes, keeping organized, etc. for college students, and that did give me a sense of joy and comfort, and I really loved it. Now looking back, I kind of see how that was a way for me to cope with my anxiety, because I was trying to fit this mold of this perfect person for my mom, for this perfect person for just everyone in my life. And every time I fell short, according to my standards, or if I felt like, based on something that was told to me as a kid, I felt like I wasn't ever doing anything right. And so I was masking this pain by obsessing over my grades and trying to be the best student that I possibly could be. And that was really hard. So all of this was just, again, I had intrusive thoughts for years. I had experienced these like really horrible, vivid images of doing things, harmful things to myself, and that's really hard for me to admit, because I tried to be as optimistic and bubbly and happy as possible, and no one really knew the pain that I was experiencing in my brain. And I was almost like trying to overcompensate, I think, sometimes, but it did make me feel better to stay in this state of happiness in front of people, because it would give me the opportunity to stop thinking about these obsessive thoughts. And so that specific day, when I woke up in the morning and was gripping my sheets, all of these things were just flashing in my mind. And I honestly don't know if I would have actually tried to do something, but I do remember thinking, I need to go to work, or I need to call into work, not go to work. I need to call into work to tell them that I need to take a leave of absence because my mental health is at risk. And instead of doing something about it, and this took a lot of strength, this took a lot of courage, this took a lot of mental strength, really. There's no other way to say it. Instead of doing something, I remember lighting a candle, and I put on one of my favorite mantras, and I just sat there in meditation and did my absolute best to try to quiet the noise in my brain. And this is like harder to talk about than I thought. In my state of meditation, I felt the presence of my uncle. And in those moments, I knew that he revealed to me that he took his own life. And the feeling that I had in that moment was that he was trying to tell me not to do the same thing that he did to himself. And I know that's really heavy to hear. I know that that could be very like woo-woo, new age, you know, whatever for people who maybe are not as spiritual or, you know, don't believe in these things. I respect that. I really do. I'm not sitting here trying to convince you of these things. I'm not trying to change your mind about these things. I'm just sharing my personal experience and what I believed to be my truth. Because what ended up happening was I sort of got out of my meditation, and it was in those moments where I said, okay, I'm not going to act on these intrusive thoughts. I am not going to allow them to get to me. And I picked up self-help book after self-help book after self-help book and listened to as many motivational, positive speakers, authors that I could get my hands on. And that year, I read 6 self-help books. I listened to mantras, and I made promises to myself that no matter how bad it got in my head, I was stronger than my thoughts. And it seems impossible when you're ruminating or when you're you're experiencing compulsions. But the thing to remember is that your brain is trying to protect you. It's in this fight or flight mode, and it's thinking that it needs to bring you back to a state of comfort. And believe it or not, even if you're used to feeling stressed, your brain is going to go back to that memory of feeling stressed as a way to comfort you, to make you feel better, because it's trying to bring you back to a state of normalcy, or, you know, make you feel like what you're going through is comforting, because that's sort of like a state of mind that you've been in for so long. And that was a really difficult pill for me to swallow as well. But I'm also learning and realizing that all of these thoughts, my compulsions, my rumination, the intrusive thoughts, they are so prevalent and screaming at me when I'm experiencing stress and anxiety and other things. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to one word: control. When we feel that we are not in control of something in our life, and we feel helpless, that no matter what we do, it's never going to get better because there's so much pain and suffering, and we feel out of control, we feel like we have no power, that typically for a sufferer, and certainly what I can say about myself, is what starts all of this. And I've been going to therapy. I do have a therapist. She has been tremendous with my healing, with my continued growth. She's given me so much awareness and so much to think about. And I am now making it even more of my life's mission to spread this awareness. As difficult as it is to talk about, as, you know, afraid as I am to be this vulnerable in front of strangers, in front of, you know, even friends that have known me for years, like for them to watch this video and not know that these were things that I went through. there is a little bit of fear, like, you know, are they going to see me differently? Are they going to think of me in a different way? My computer just stopped working. Okay, it just, screen went dark. But yeah, so there certainly is, there's a lot of fear in being this open, but I feel ready for it. I have wanted to share all of these things that I have been hiding and all of these things that I've been suppressing for 10 years now. I've been wanting to share them for the last 10 years. And I know I'm 28 now. I started my YouTube channels when I was 18, and they were fashion related. They were, you know, college help related, things like that. I am looking to shift this channel to more mental health awareness. I would still love to do organizational color coding, you know, those kinds of things. Like, I still want to make videos like that because I really think that I'm feeling kind of led and called back to YouTube, although I still need to update cameras and software and all of that, but this just feels right to be in front of the camera again and to just share this. So as kind of like a closing, you know, I had a very candid conversation with my dad after that meditation and kind of looked at my dad and said, hey, I know what happened to Zio Leo. Zio in Italian means uncle. And his face like went white, and he kind of looked at me and said, well, what do you mean? You know, like, he died in a car accident. And I looked at him and I was like, no, I mean, I know what happened to him. And my parents are very spiritual as well. So, you know, for me to share with him that I was in meditation and that he visited me and shared this truth with me, he believed me, which was very comforting, which was very nice. I didn't need to ruminate to get his approval, but I wanted him to know that I knew. And again, for like 10 years or however long it had been, you know, in between that experience and my uncle passing, I still had believed at the time that he died in a car accident. So I just remember that my dad kind of looked at me and was like, I'm so sorry that you found out. And I was like, don't, because he just shared with me what not to do. And I was so afraid to tell this to my mom for so many different reasons. I didn't want her to know how badly I was suffering, how badly religion ruined me, how badly my obsessions were as a kid, how badly my anxiety and my depression got to me. I wanted to be stronger than that and not seem weak or too vulnerable by being this honest. And I have to say that this was like last Easter. My mom, my dad, my brother, they were all there, and we had like a 3-day family therapy session, and I unloaded everything. I told my mom that I had suicidal thoughts. I told my mom about my scrupulosity, and I was just very open and candid about everything. And I've never felt better. I can't believe the comfort that I experienced in just being open and just sharing what was going on in my mind. And I was experiencing a lot of compulsions and intrusive thoughts recently again, which is why, you know, I went back to therapy. But that's also why I started my Twitter, or not started, but why I went back on Twitter and have made the decision to really be 100% mental health awareness on my Twitter and on my blog and on my podcast. So as I sat at my desk and was writing a blog post about today, I realized that there was too much that I wanted to share. And although I love writing and I love being able to just download my thoughts into writing, something told me to make a video. And so here we are. So as closing thoughts, I, again, am continuing to do therapy sessions. I'm continuing to have open communication with people. Please know, first and foremost, you're not alone. You're not. There are so many resources, outlets, people who you can talk to. And even if you're feeling alone in your family, I've been there. I didn't want to talk to my family about this. I didn't feel close to my family. The name of my podcast is actually Found Family, because I feel that I found family outside of my blood family. So if you're feeling like the black sheep of your family, my brother felt that way for a really long time, and I didn't realize that I also felt that way as well, but you're not alone. If you feel like you can't talk to your friends, I get it. I haven't told my friends this. They will, if they come across this video and they watch it, great. I'm going to be more open with them as well. Because again, I really do think that vulnerability is so important. And just being open and honest and just asking for help. So the first, again, that I want to share on such an important day like today is, please know that you're not alone. Please know that there are resources and people that you can talk to. If for whatever reason you don't feel safe or comfortable reaching out to those other things, and you want to ask me about my experiences first, feel free to, well, you don't need to leave a comment because that'll be public, but you can send me a message. You can find me on Twitter at Elizabeth Vibes. I'll have all the information in the description. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I am not a mental health doctor. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm going to be able to give you professional advice, and I still want to stress the importance of speaking with a professional, a mental health counselor. I just personally know that from people I've been talking with on Twitter and people that I've been talking to on Reddit, something new that I've been on, that it's really helpful sometimes to just hear about someone's experience and just kind of see your story and their story, and it could just be the conversation to be had before reaching out for help. So I really hope that you do that, and I know that it's, oversaid sometimes about these mantras like, I love myself, I accept myself, but please, just know that you are loved. You are worthy. We need you on this planet. We need you to be exactly who you are. I understand that you're going through a lot. I understand it's hard. I know. It is. It's very hard. It really is. When you're going through those thoughts, it is. It's very, very hard. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. You are amazing. You are a warrior. You are a fighter. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of mental strength to even get out of bed in the morning some days, but you do it. And that is amazing. Celebrate these moments. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate how far you've come. And just as beautiful as it is that for the LGBTQ community, the hashtag it gets better, I don't know what kind of hashtag we should, start about mental health awareness, but, it does get better, and it does. I am now taking my experiences and things that I went through and using them as a way to connect with people like you. And that means the world to me. And I know that I needed to stay here to deliver this message and to deliver the messages that I've been delivering. And who knows what incredible magic you are going to bring to this world. And we need you, because you're the only one with your story. You're the only one with your experiences. You're the only one who's lived life the way that you've lived. We need to hear it. And so I encourage you to share your story as well and to connect with people. You guys are amazing. I've been looking at this nail that I need to fix for so long in this video. I'm trying to ignore it. I love you guys so much. I would really appreciate sharing this video, liking this video, subscribe to my channel for new updates on new videos. The link to my podcast is going to be below as well. I've released 3 episodes so far, and I have 6 that are planned to go live. They're released every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, And so tomorrow's Wednesday, so if you are interested in joining my newsletter, you will be the first to know when the podcast goes live. The notification also sends out messages when I post blogs that go live, so all that information will be down below. Again, thank you guys so much. I hope this video does give you a sense of hope, and I am hopeful that me sharing my story can give you comfort and help you know that you're not alone. All right, I love you guys, and please, please reach out to someone today.